Welcome! In today's video, we are going to get multiple shaders working. In other words, multiple pipelines. We've got an example where we have some lights. And I'm going to set it up so that we can actually see the lights. So I'm going to draw a billboard at each of the lights. The issue with this is when we draw the lights, we don't want to calculate lighting. Lights do not cast light on themselves, and it would be too much work to send a bunch of data except for the current light that we're drawing. That's too much. So, step by step, the first thing we're going to do is import all the resources that we need for this project. That is the models and textures. If we go to the models folder, there's this light info. We can drag this in to our models group. We've got that. Then we can open up the assets catalog. And in textures, we have this light.png. I'm actually going to rename this. I'm going to name this to star.png. Why not? So this represents a light. It's white, and yeah, I know it's very well designed. It's white, and we're going to tint it according to the color of the light. That's what we'll do instead of doing any lighting calculations. So we can drag this in. We've got that in the assets catalog. Okay. Now let's work on the coding. We're going to go model and then view. So for the model class, I'm going to create a new file, which I'm going to call bright billboard. A bright billboard will be sort of like a combination of a point light and a billboard class. All right, so let's go ahead and code this up. Be a fair bit of coding here. Okay, so very exciting. Really, all we really need is position, model, color, and that's about it. These other variables are used, just like in the previous video, to sort of animate the motion with each frame. Okay, now we can create, oh, what have we missed? Path radius. There we go. Okay, now we can create the update function. Okay, so that's all very exciting. Really, this is, like I said, combination of the code from before. So we're just grabbing all the variables. Here, this is the update code from the point light, including this bit. And here, this is the update code from the billboard. So nothing new. Okay, so what we can do is we can change up the game scene. So now the point lights is going to be an array of bright billboards. Be a bit of adjustment here. So as you can see, we're just grabbing the arguments from down below, then we can get rid of that. And hopefully that should be okay. Let's give it a second. Yeah, that's fine. And then we'll go ahead and create the other one. Okay, got that set up. So we can go down to the update function, and of course we'll have to here put in the player's position. Then we will go to the renderer, because when we change this from just a light component to its own class, some of these changed from being optional to just being standard. So we can go to the renderer, and down in set light data, we no longer need to unwrap position. Okay, so now let's create another shader. So there's sort of a, you know what, I'll go through the full process as if I was doing this from scratch. This is not going to immediately result in the correct implementation, and I'll show how we can change it. So we can go here and go File, New File. I'm going to make a new metal file, and I'm just going to call this Unlit Shaders. Okay, so just put it here next to shaders, and we'll grab everything from shaders and stick it in that file. We can simplify things quite a bit. Yeah, keep that. We do not need all of these lighting functions. The vertex in will now not need a normal, but we can still use the same vertex descriptor, because just because we're not using that vertex attribute doesn't mean we can't have it there, if that makes sense. Fragment, we're just going to take in the position and the texture coordinate, nothing else. Okay, now we do not need, we do need camera parameters. What am I thinking? Okay, what we don't need is we don't need diminished model, because diminished model, its only purpose is to transform the normal, which we're not going to use. So, long story short, we can get rid of all of this. The only stuff we're outputting is the position and texture coordinate. Now, when we take this in, we are not going to take any of this. We are going to take some data, call this tint. This is the color of the light, and this is a float 3. We're going to take it in index 0 on the buffer. I've got that the wrong way around. Data type is float 3. It's a reference, and it's called tint. Okay, good. So we have the base color, we have the alpha, and we can actually get rid of all of this. We're not going to do any lighting calculation. All we're going to do is we're going to take tint, multiply it with the base color, and that's it. Now, with that done, we can also get rid of all of these lighting functions. We do not need them. Okay, so it's a good idea to repeatedly run and just see what happens. So we can run this. Build failed. Okay. 2 duplicated symbols for target Air 64. Now this is confusing because it's tempting to look at this and say that the error is this Air 64 Apple iOS whatever and say, hey, Apple's just done its thing, it's done a new update, whatever, I don't know, maybe that's messed it up. No. So if we double click on this somewhere, okay, now it complains down here, but it's actually up here. Duplicated symbol vertex shader, duplicated symbol fragment shader. So clearly we do not, clearly we don't want this. So we can actually, it's actually a great idea just to add a little suffix here, unlit, and that just gets us out of trouble. Vertex shader, unlit. And of course, well, we've changed our vertex types. Let me just call this vertex unlit. That makes vertex in unlit, that makes no sense. Okay, so we'll just have to, okay, what are we outputting? We're outputting an unlit fragment. So we can change that there. Okay, and we can also change this. And yeah, that seems fine. So we can run this again. Seems to succeed. Okay, that's great. So let's go to our renderer. And this is a little bit messy, but that's fine. So if we have a look down here, this is the part where we are sort of making our shaders and we're associating them with a given pipeline. So when we make a new shader, we also want a new pipeline to work with that. And then down in the drawing section, where are we? We set the pipeline for a render encoder, so we'll have to change that as well. We go up here, we have what? Pipeline state. I'm going to call this lit pipeline, and we're also going to have an unlit pipeline. I'm going to get back to those errors in a second. Now, things get a little weird. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this code and I'm going to put it into its own function. So here's how I do it. We grab all of this, head over to View, make a new file, which I'm going to call Pipeline Builder. And this is where I'm going to implement the code. I'm going to implement it as a static library, which means this pipeline builder class is not something that we create. It's something that holds functions like a library and we sort of reference it. So we'll go static class. Okay, so we've got all of that. I'm going to get to these other arguments in a second. What we need is go to the renderer, and it's this bit here where we sort of actually create the pipeline. Okay, so I'm going to need a few things. See, we have a device, so we'll say, okay, we're going to take this. We'll say metal device. So that's fine. Then we have library. So we're going to go, okay. And then remember, before in our different shaders, we had different function names. So we actually want to make these their own thing. So we'll have vertex shader entry and fragment shader entry. And then down here, we're going to need this. So if we double click over here, it says vertex descriptor from model IO. So we're going to need a descriptor, which is going to have type model vertex descriptor. Okay, fingers crossed. I think that's okay. What's this complaining about? Expected that. Let's get back to that in a second. This one's closed. That one's closed. What are you complaining about? Oh, well, that's fine. We'll work that out. All right, so we need to specify what we're returning. We're going to return a metal render pipeline state. So we want to return. Oh, what's up here? You guys are screaming at the screen just then, right? Static function, not a class. That totally makes sense. All right, so where was I? All right, so vertex shader entry, fragment shader entry. That's fine. No, it doesn't know what this is, so this will be the vertex descriptor parameter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this and return it. And it's complaining right now. It doesn't know this function. No problem at all. We want to import metal kit. There we go. Okay. Great. So let's go back to the original. And we'll create the shader. So we'll go so we've got the library. We're also going to grab the vertex descriptor. So we'll say get that. And now we can make the lit pipeline by, well, what's that? Building the pipeline based on all of this stuff. So we put in the metal. It's so hard to just fill in what I'm trying to say. I'm joking. Xcode is actually pretty good at guessing what I'm trying to say. I don't do a good job of describing myself. Okay. Vertex shader there. Okay. I think that's fine. Let me just run that and see if we get any errors. Yeah, we do. Okay, what's going on? Oh yeah, of course, of course. So here when we go set pipeline state, we're using the lit pipeline. Let's give that another crack. Okay. Oh yeah, so now it's saying unlit pipeline is not initiated. That's fine. Let's just comment that out for now. I just want to check that the darn thing is working. Okay, that's looking good. It's pretty good. Right, so let's take all this stuff and abstract the lit pipeline stuff out into its own function. Let's go down here and say, very imaginative, we're going to need a render encoder. And for this, we can pretty much grab everything up to end encoding. Okay, so as you can see, we set the current pipeline to the lit pipeline with the lit shaders and everything. Of course, we're going to set our depth and stencil buffer. This will be the same for both pipelines. And we have all these drawing commands. Okay. Again, let's double check that this is working. That's looking good. We can close that down. And now let's try, well, before we do anything else, we're going to need to, you know what, let's create this and just check that this works, okay? So we've got unlit pipeline, go down here. You know what, I've actually not tried this. I wonder if this works. Build succeeded, and it seems to run. Okay, that's very interesting. So in the draft code that I was writing for this, I put the shader code sort of bundled together into one file, but it looks like when we create the default library, that actually looks through all the .metal files and sort of works out that they're involved. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's create the resources which this will use. So we go back up here, we have mesh. So I'm going to have a, what is it? A light mesh. Let's create that. So if we look over at models, it is light.obj. So we can go down here. And see how that goes. Build succeeded. Okay, that's good. And then we're going to have light material. And then if we go into the asset catalog, this is star, is the name of this resource that we want to load. So, where is it? Light material. And the resource name is star. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, it says couldn't load mesh. I was lazy. This should be couldn't load material. Let me go. Couldn't load material from. Okay, let's verify that that is what we're after. Stop that. Run it again. Yeah. Couldn't load material from star. That's very strange. It's very, I don't know. I really don't know. Because if we open up, this is the assets catalog. It has loaded. It is a PNG. It's, yeah. I really can't think of any reason why this would be failing, and this caused much frustration. I mean, look, new texture, name, file name, scale factor 1.0, yeah, in the assets catalog, that is scale factor 1.0. Yeah, I really, and it's not a weird thing, because if I go back to the renderer and then I put in the name of a file that I can load and run that again, then it loads no problem. So it's not an issue with creating a new one. It's just, it doesn't like this file for some reason. For whatever reason. And I ummed and ahed about this and I couldn't find any helpful info. So what we can do instead is simply delete all of this. Okay. Goodbye assets catalog. It's been fun until it wasn't. Delete selected items. Okay. So what can we do instead? Well, it's simple enough. What we can do is we can write a different loader. So we go, by the way, let me just grab this, delete that, just remove reference, okay. And then grab everything from textures and re-add it to the textures group. Okay, so now I'm going to load these in by hand without using the asset catalog. So go to material, and let's see, we have file name, and then I'm going to go okay, we've got that. And then we can simply say allocator, new texture, and then we can go put that in there. Now, yeah, I think that should be fine. Alrighty, so all we need to do is then go back to the renderer and add in the file name extensions. Okay, so over here, and this was star.png. Okay. Alrighty, let's try that. And now that's working with no error. So ultimately, asset catalog, not so good. Now, I don't know, some sort of esoteric thing. I don't have the time to dive into that. Okay, so that's working. Now we just need to create a function to draw the unlit objects. So pretty much be very similar. Okay, so first step is we arm the unlit pipeline. Depth stencil state can stay the same. We will send the camera data, but we won't send the light data. Okay, now what will we arm for drawing? We will arm our light mesh and light material, and then we'll loop through the point lights, and we're going to send the color. So we'll go render encoder, set fragment bytes. Okay, so the bytes will be the pointer to the light color. The length will be the stride of a SIMD float 3, and then the index will be 0 because this is buffer 0. Then we'll go, we're going to draw the light mesh, and then we can remove all of these other draw functions. We're not drawing anything else, just the lights. So when we run this, we expect to see colored stars representing each of the point lights. And that's indeed what we can see. We can pull it back. There's one up there. And yeah. Sorry. So there we have it. I hope you found this enjoyable. I, for one, I was pleasantly and unpleasantly surprised. Pleasantly surprised that it's actually so simple to set up multiple pipelines. Just define the fragment shaders and make default library handles it for you, and unpleasantly surprised that the that the asset catalog sort of let us down. Side note, see how this cyan star is popping behind Mickey Mouse and then seems to disappear and reappear? Why do you think that is? That is the that is to do with transparency, but it wouldn't be an issue with models that don't have transparency. Anyway, I'm happy with this. So yeah, hope you had fun, and I will see you again soon. Bye.